All right, Rip City. We are on the Rip City Roundtable podcast, and friend of the show, Steve Dewald, is here. Steve, we are so glad you took the time out of your busy day to come back on the table that is semi-round-ish, kind of. First off, man, thanks for coming back. We got rolling again last week for the episodes. We took our little summer break. After Summer League, you came on. We talked about the draft. Mr. Klingon, who we'll talk about here probably later in the episode, but drafting him this summer, and then we all kind of took a little break in August and September. But we're back now, Steve. How was your summer? I mean, did you do anything fun and exciting like that you want to just tell everyone about?
I mean, my summer was a little more low key because we were in 2 weddings in Mexico, so I used up a lot of that old PTO earlier in the year. But we just had a gorgeous summer here in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, cool. It's a couple trips to the coast, the classic stuff. So
yeah, cool. But I was actually able. I hadn't been back, because I'm down here in Waco, Texas, and I hadn't been back to the Portland area. I think it might have been right around when our son was born. So it was like 2 years ago. But we came back in September for a wedding. One of my good friends from high school was getting married, and it was just gorgeous. It was like, outside of Newburgh, and we're like in the rolling hills and wine country, and the weather was great. And I was like, oh man, I was like, I talking to my wife, Lauren, I was like, I mean, we could just move back, and probably not going to happen, but it was nice coming back home for a little bit. So.
No, Waco's not bad though. I don't mind Texas.
Yeah, Texas isn't bad. Texas has definitely grown on me. It was an adjustment for sure when I got down here, but yeah, it's home now. So, all right, Steve. Well, you know what, dude? We're just gonna jump into it. So at this point in the season, where we're at now, we're recording this on a Monday here. The Blazers were 3 games into the season. We're 1-2. We've played the Pelicans twice and the Warriors for the first game. I want to get your thoughts on what you've seen so far during these first 3 games. Is this the team you thought you were going to see? Or have they surprised you? Are there certain players that have stuck out? Give me kind of your Steve Dewald thoughts. And for our audience that doesn't track with you, Steve, you kept up with all the draft picks. You were coming on our show last season, dropping knowledge about who the Blazers should be drafting. And I know the draft again wasn't great or whatever, but so that's your background. Now you're seeing some of these players now come. The season started. So from that perspective and just overall, what are your thoughts?
I mean, so to be honest, I mean, the team I kind of expected to see was the team that rolled out in the home opener. Wasn't much of a game. The Pelicans games have been very encouraging, but also I think tonight, before we record, as we're recording this, they're getting ready to play the Kings. I think it's going to be a really good test here to kind of see what to expect. I think a lot of the younger players, I think Tumani Kamara, a guy we both praised in the past, looks the part of an NBA role player. Looks like a guy who could probably be the 5th option of starter for a good team. Jeremy Grant is playing out of his mind right now. I've kind of come around to the idea of, I think it's nothing but a win for the Blazers, where he's playing so well that he's definitely upping his trade value. But if he sticks around, he's the type of player I think you want around. He's been absolutely amazing for the floor spacing. I don't think his shooting percentages are sustainable on that front, but it's important to create an environment for these younger players to have that person, taking the pressure off of them, that he's there to take the big shots. He's there to make sure lanes stay open. And it's clear he has the green light to do whatever he wants. I think Donovan Klingon looks as advertised. He's huge, has a really nice touch in the paint on the defensive side. We've seen him make a couple fouls, but really for a player like that was typically a 3 or 4 year adjustment time for those players where they learn to not be foul magnets. He's looked good. Now, I don't know if his ceiling is much more than, 23 to 28 minutes a night, but I think he's a little more flexible on offense than I even thought, but defensively, he's as advertised. On the downside, I know people have been really excited with some of the stuff they've seen from Scoot Henderson. But I've really just been thinking a lot because I've watched, 2 consecutive games start to finish, which I'll be honest, last year I did not watch a lot of this team.
Yeah.
I focused on the prospects. Really, for most of my adult fanhood and when I'm really dialed in, I've watched Blazer teams that have competent point guards. So, I really just count Andre Miller and then a brief break. And then we had Damian Lillard enter the league as kind of an old soul at point guard, someone you could trust.
Yeah.
I think Scoot does a lot of really flashy things that are nice, but I think he makes a lot of parts of the game way harder than they have to be, whether it's entry passes, whether it's, not just telegraphing everything. I'm not used to. I think I'm understanding how much harder it is for everybody else when you have a point guard that just really can't make the little things easy. So everything's kind of difficult. Everything kind of looks way harder than it should. And I mean, that's a product of, 15 years plus of watching competent point guard play. Yeah. So we'll see how it goes. I think that might be the last piece that comes in, but I think for what this team's probably trying to do this year, I think you want guys like Scoot Henderson to go through those those pains. And then also having someone like DeAndre Ayton who can just just do some brain neutral stuff where it's like at the end of that Pelicans game, the first game, I mean, he missed 2 layups down the stretch where it's like, I don't know if you're doing that on purpose, man, but like it's exactly what we need. We want to make sure we get those lottery odds, but also look like we're a competitive team at the same time where we don't want to breed that losing culture here. So kind of perfect players to have and what I'm hoping this season turns out to be.
Yeah, that's so well put. I think starting off with like your Jeremy Grant point, I mean, yeah, he has I don't even know what's beyond a green light. I guess that's the greenest, whatever the greenest shade of green is, he has that light. And he's the only, he's only 4, power forward, any guy on this team that can really score the ball from that position, which that was always the argument that maybe not trading him so soon was that we don't have anybody to kind of fill in that void necessarily. And yeah, he is locked in. I was on the like the pessimistic side where I was like, well, yeah, clearly he's showing off right now. He's what the Pelicans were a team that mentioned, not that I think we want like a Brandon Ingram or anything like that, but it's like he's showing people, look, I got it, man. But he is on fire. I wish he was on a Blazers team that was competent. Like I wish he was like 3 years younger or something, and he would stick around for where hopefully we're going because he does fit what we would need. It's just they're not the right time in my opinion. But
yeah. Even just having him under a coach like Terry Stotts, where we've seen what he can do with very versatile power forwards. Like I would have loved to have seen him in a Stotts fence. To where he can kind of do some more of those things that LaMarcus did and, that he had Dirk Nowitzki doing in Dallas. Like he's playing that style of basketball. And looking forward, and I've been a big proponent of let's see what we can get for him on the trade market. But also, if the ping pong balls do fall Portland's way, I can't think of a better professional to have in a room with a guy like Cooper Flagg than Jeremy Grant because ideally you're playing the same type of position, a very competent defender and someone who can score from all 3 levels. And I mean, I think Cooper Flagg has a much higher ceiling than Jeremy Grant, but man, to have that person when you come into the league could be such a huge bonus for a player like him coming to Portland.
Yeah, it's one of those things that people don't talk about because it's not on the stat sheet or this or that, but it does. But these guys, 82 games, all the traveling, like you can glean so much wisdom off of these veteran players with having young guys around or, vice versa, that I just think that is a huge deal. Is Stotts fence? Did you come up with that or is that someone else's term, Steve?
No, I don't think so. I think that's been in the ether for a while. I don't know who to attribute it to, but I mean, knowing me, it's probably a Danny Meringue saying that I've just absorbed. But it's been out there. That's not a Dewald original.
I love it so much. I love it so much. Yeah. No, I think in Cronin, Joe Cronin, the GM, has shown obviously he goes patience, right? Just he'll find the right deal. And if the Jeremy Grant deal isn't the right one, they're very happy just keeping him. And I think the Blazers and Rip City fan base, I think we would be fine still having him. This isn't like the old Rafe LaFren's expiring or other ones where it's like, you got to move it. It's like, well, I mean, if it's the right deal, sure. But if not, then he's there. I just thought, is the starting lineup, is that the lineup you thought was going to be out there to start these first 3 games, Steve? Or were you surprised by the starting lineup?
I mean, I think judging what was coming out of training camp, this is kind of what I expected. I think Tumani Kamara was playing so well that they weren't going to deny him that extra starting spot.
Yeah.
But I think this is going to be pretty fluid. I mean, we're 3 games into the season. I think we're going to see a lot of iterations of what the starting lineup's going to look like this year.
Sure.
But I am interested to see. What I do like about this is I think this is an offense and a starting lineup that's more conducive for a guy like Anthony Simons and Jeremy Grant. I think things get weird for Anthony Simons when Scoot's out there too. So I like having this starting lineup the way it is. And I mean, yes, we can hang on to both of those players, but this is also a good way to showcase them in the opening minutes against teams of what these players look like in an ideal situation in a starting lineup.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I just was like, okay, Denny is probably not a 2, right? He's more of a 3 or a stretch 4. And then Tumani was always like that 3 or could be a 4 in some lineups. It just didn't feel like, oh, there's no real 2. Well, I mean, Simons, I guess, would be the 2, but like, who's the point guard? Who's the shooting guard? That part was weird to me. But I mean, I get it. But if like Shaden, let's say, wasn't hurt, if Sharp is playing, is he starting? And if so, then who goes to the bench?
Yeah, I think in that situation, you probably start Shaden, and then I would assume you move Denny down a position to small forward, and then with Tumani being kind of that jack of all trades, I think he's a more classic 6-man. Like if your 6-man is not going to be a guard, I think your 6-man is like perfectly fitted for what Tumani does, because you can bring him in as a power forward, small forward, and I think there are some lineups where you can play him all the way up to guard.
Sure.
But as someone who's watched and you as well, a massively undersized backcourt, like I'm here for putting Denny at shooting guard. Like let's just attack hype and see what it looks like, and we'll compensate for those years. We'll bring that average up a little bit.
Sure.
Close out this decade.
Yeah, for a while we were hurting there with CJ and Dave, but yeah, I was glad to see the team at least bounce back against the Pelicans in that game too, because game 1, that was, so frustrating, Steve. Like I want us to lose. I'm sorry. I want us to have a better chance at a draft pick so we can have contention, the future of contending in the NBA. But dude, to lose like that, like the turnovers, the cherry picking, the show, all the threes, like I was like throwing my iPad, like it was just like show effort. I feel like I could not watch 82 games of that. Like I don't mind watching us, lose and the whole development thing, but if it was going to be that every night, Steve, no way. No way. So I was glad there was bounce back and a little.
Yeah, I'm hoping for more games like the second game. I don't want too many wins.
Yeah.
I want we can show we can be competitive, and then if we can pin a loss on a couple just bonehead missed layups, I'm perfect there.
Yeah, for sure. I think, if you look at the standings, and I know we're like way too early for the standings, but you have Detroit at 0-3. I think Detroit's actually not terrible. Like they're going to get wins. Like that's going to happen. Charlotte, they're 1-2. Charlotte looks competitive early on. They're going to get some early wins, I think. I think Washington is who we're competing with. Like they're 0-2. They're not going to win a lot of games. So we just got to pace with them, Steve. That's it.
I think the Pelicans are right there too. I think they are awful.
Oh,
and I think that
they're going to like tank it or going to be bad.
Well, I don't think they're going to on purpose tank. But if you're talking about a team that could just instantly get into this race, you have the well-known Brandon Ingram situation there. That's not ideal by any sounds of it. Yeah. They're at an impasse on what his future is there. Zion has proven he can be gone in the blink of an eye. And then you have a center situation where I think they're going to have to address it because this isn't going to work. this is, I think, my major thing that I was bummed out for this 2-game series was that Robert Williams wasn't playing, because that, I think, would be a perfect trade target for them. And, we've proven we can make deals with New Orleans, but New Orleans there's some serious problems with that roster. And so we'll see what happens, but I think there's a lot of teams that could it could go real bad in a real hurry. And like the Pelicans, just because they're proven producers, could be gone instantly. So I think that's where we potentially run into issues.
Who and sorry, I know we're kind of going off here, but like, who is that a CJ problem? Like who on what contending team in the last, like, say 10 years was there a CJ McCollum on any of those teams? Like if you went through the past champions, like is Steph Curry the closest to, like, and I know I'm not comparing Steph to CJ, but
I hear you.
That kind of smaller guard that's a shooter, like, because if you start going through all these other championship teams over the last decade, there's not really a CJ McCollum, unless maybe they're coming off the bench or something. Like, is CJ the problem? Is that why the roster is weird?
I mean, I think it's an Ingram Zion thing, and that's where I would kind of put that. I would say probably, and it's not a perfect comparison, and he definitely wasn't the clear number one on that team, but like Jamal Murray like when Jamal Murray's right and playing, I see him more in that, the smaller offense-oriented guard. Like that's the guy who's coming right to mind here. I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but that isn't Steph. But Jamal Murray would probably be the one that I would out of that group.
That makes sense. They should. Okay, the Pels just trade for Jokic, and then you guys are fine. So
no, the best big man in the league, and then you'll be set. Which, I mean, if you want to talk about a team that should call up the Blazers and really just test the water for Jeremy Grant, like Jeremy Grant fixes a lot of problems that the Nuggets are running into. They just don't have the money to make that deal work at this point.
They don't, and like what we'd have to probably, like, Michael Porter Jr. would have to probably be in that trade, and it's like, does a guy like that, like, injury history, does he help the Blazers? Probably not. I mean, he's young, but outside of that, I don't know. But yeah, you're right. Denver, I didn't mention them, but yeah, they're sitting there at 0-2 as well in the standings. But you have to think they'll right the ship in some way.
They'll be fine. But I don't think right now that what they're doing now is not a title winning team. They're going to be fine, but I mean, they have higher hopes for the playoffs.
There could be, though, like, you throw a package. I know you'd have to make the money work, like you said, but maybe like a bunch of first rounders from them, because maybe Jokic just doesn't want to play until he's like 35 or 36. So maybe, in like 29 and 30, when we get those Milwaukee picks and they're going to be good, then we get the Denver picks, and then we're like, okay.
Perpetual state of rebuild, and just I always have interesting content because we always have an early pick. That's the dream, right?
That is the dream. Always content for Steve. Well, let's move into that real quick. Well, we're transitioning. So you've been watching more games this year, like you just said, so that's been good. But are you still, I mean, you're still going to be tracking like prospects and stuff like that? Is that still going to be part of your regular season thing?
No, it's nice this year. There's a lot of guys in college that are kind of one-stop shop. You can watch one team, and you're going to get a big cross-section of players that are in the lottery conversation. So a lot of teams will play their first early kind of couple preseason games, not really televised. This kicks into full swing next week.
Cool.
I mean, with your Baylor Bears coming to Spokane, a guy, I mean, you've heard me talk about Cooper Flagg a lot, but VJ Edgecombe is like, he is a lot of fun to watch. Yep. He's played well. He played great in the Olympic qualifiers going into the Olympics this last year. He's got a mean streak to him on defense that I'm obsessed with. And then just as far as like players with the like explosive first steps and plays above the rim, he is that guy. There's some other stuff he's got to apply polish to, but as far as athletic ability and demeanor, he's exactly the type of player I fall in love with. But really, I mean,
there's a lot of hype here in Waco, Texas over VJ. That is, hype for sure.
And he's very comfortable in front of the camera too, which is, I mean, that's not a huge thing, but after watching kind of Scoot and Shaden kind of learned the hard way with some stuff. It definitely piques your interest when you see someone like that.
Yeah.
And the type of command he has in those situations.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Like Scott Drew, the head coach of the Baylor Bears, for media day, they took VJ with them, and normally Scott doesn't do that. They'll bring seniors or juniors there that are more they're used to the media, they're trained, they can kind of, but they brought VJ with them, and that spoke volumes because it says, okay, we trust this kid to be able to kind of handle questions and not give bad answers, but also not give like weird answers that could potentially put him into a corner somewhere. So that was like a little tidbit that got passed around here last week in Waco. Everyone was excited about like, oh, they took him to media day, but we'll see how the season breaks down, Steve. I mean, I think, watching the lead up to the Olympics, right. And the way Cooper Flagg played against that NBA superstar roster, like, I think he's still the prize. But the Blazers, like, we can't, like, if we tank it and we're in the bottom 3, and again the ping pong balls go to 3 instead of 1, we're still getting somebody that is a difference maker. Ideally, more so than we would have this past season in the draft.
No, I think for this draft, VJ I think would have maybe been the number 1 pick in this draft. Yeah. But I think he's maybe the 4th guy. 3rd, 4th guy in this draft. So that speaks volumes to the level of talent that's here. And I mean, it really does start with Cooper Flagg. But the nice thing about tuning in to watch Duke is you're going to get a look at 4 guys that all could potentially be in the lottery. And so you got Cooper Flagg. Possibly my favorite thing that's going to get people in trouble on broadcasting is Con Nipples. I don't know if the K is silent or how we're doing it. I listened to so part of the thing with me is at this point, I'm learning how people say their names.
Sure.
And I listened to 4 different highlight reels and interviews, and I'm like, that's really what they're saying.
Oh, so, man. Yeah, you really hope he's not cold from 3-point land. Like, man, Nipples is cold or something. I don't know. That can go in weird ways.
Yeah. So, but he's a classic floor spacer, Mr. Basketball in Wisconsin last year. Absolutely went off the other day in one of their preseason games where it's a repeatable, beautiful catch and shoot shot. Cooper is going to get a lot of assists from this guy. Cooper Flagg's going to get you a lot of work in the post because this guy's taking a lot of pressure off. Kamen Malak, another guy we talked about, 7'2" center, played here at the Hoop Summit. Yes, he's 7'2", but he plays very light on his feet. He runs well in transition. He's got a very soft jump shot. I'm really interested to see what his ceiling is going to be. And then finally, a guy who I have fallen in love with of these 4 is Isaiah Evans. He's raw. He's about a 6'6", small forward. Again, kind of like VJ, plays with a mean streak on both sides of the ball. Has to tighten up just the correctable things. Sure. He's got to tighten up his handle a little bit. He's got to prove he's consistent with shooting. But man, is he explosive. He is a clear leader in the clubhouse. So I'm excited to see how he fits in more of a tertiary role on this Duke team. Because if he can nail that, there's always a spot in the league for a player like that, especially with his upside as a defender with how athletic he is. Nice. So that's just one team where you tune in to watch Duke, you're going to get a look at 4 players. Yeah. And then finally, 2, bang for your buck, it's got to be Rutgers, a team I'm obsessed with this year. I mean, any other draft, Ace Bailey is the guy. Yeah. So he's, classic 6'8", guard forward. I think he's a guy who can play shooting guard at the next level. He can certainly play small forward, but is explosive, is a 3-level scorer. If a guy like Cooper Flagg isn't in this draft, we're talking about Ace Bailey every day. He's going to get a chance to hit the ground running in Rutgers with the perfect running mate there in Dylan Harper, who's just a classic big point guard, son of Ron Harper. He knows what it's like to be a pro, sees the floor really well. That Rutgers team is going to be a lot of fun. So if you're a fan in Oregon of quality college basketball and quality basketball in general, February 16th, put it on your calendar, go down to Eugene, watch Rutgers play Oregon in Eugene at the Matthew Knight Arena, because I think it's going to be great. I think there's going to be a lot of scouts there. I think it's going to be, by that time of the year,
Yeah.
Probably the most interesting basketball that's going to be happening in Oregon for a while. No offense, Blazers, but get your ticket now. You got Kwame Evans for the Ducks also playing, another guy who's on that fringe lottery discussion. So potentially seeing 3 lottery picks up close in the home state. Get your tickets now.
That's big time. I like the plug. Thank you, Oregon, for being in the Big Ten so that Rutgers can come to the state of Oregon to play the Ducks. There we go.
Just a couple classic Big Ten teams right there, Rutgers and Oregon.
Yeah, good old Big Ten basketball matchup there. I love it. Yeah, I don't know what the NIL budget was for Rutgers, but they must have like pulled it together because I can't remember the last time they've had like a competent college basketball team, let alone one with like NBA stars or potential stars. So here we go. Come on, Rutgers. That's awesome. There's a lot in this draft, man. I think it. I know you can't, if we tank, you can't guarantee the number 1 pick, yada yada. But if you get in that bottom 3, we're getting somebody that can help. And as you just laid out, there's a lot of great options. And I know the team is the Blazers. I know we're 1-2. I know if they strung off 5 in a row, I don't know what my feelings would be at that point. But like, we just need it. We need one more bad season, and I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, and I'm sorry. But there's fun things to still watch, and clearly these college players. So that's what it's got to be, Steve. And you know this, I know this. We're on the same page.
Yeah, I'm hoping it's more like game 2 than game 1. And if we get some wins, and like my thing is, as we saw last year with the lottery, you don't have to be the worst team. Like you just got to get a little lucky on lottery ball night. And my thing is, let's not make the basketball gods angry. Let's go win some games. Let's teach these young guys how to win. Yeah. And if we got to pull up at the end of the season and lose a few games in a row, let's make it happen. But I have a feeling it's going to work itself out. I think there's going to be some stuff that might be working now for the Blazers that might not be working here in a few games. One is Jeremy's going to cool off eventually. Yeah. And then also too, they've been throwing out the gimmicky zone defense a little bit to start the season. Yeah. Once there's some film out there, teams figure that out pretty quick.
They do. Yeah, for sure. Well, I would say my last 2 points, you touched on these when you were going through the player, and I'll be quick. All I want to see is Scoot just like slow it up. Like when the thing that scares me the most is him bringing the ball down the court at a quick pace. When that's the scariest thing he's doing, he needs to just chill. Like in mostly that game 1, they were just dumb turnovers where he just gets himself into trouble because, like you said, he's so talented and he's so fast and he's strong and he sees the floor well, but he's like 9 steps ahead and no one else is at that pace with him. And then it's a turnover or it's a bad shot or it's a weird layup. And so, it's like you just take a breath. Like it's okay, Scoot. Like just woo-saw, wax on, wax off. Something. Just
do the little things. Do the little things well, and it all gets easier.
Yes, and it all gets easier. So I'm not jumping off that bandwagon. He's got it. He just has to calm it down. And then Klingon, man, I love this dude. He's blocking shots. He's big. He's doing what he's supposed to do. And he's, like you said, I couldn't have put it better. He's staying out of foul trouble. Like this isn't the weird thing where the big center, the rookie comes in and they're instantly just calling fouls on the guy. It's like, man, he knows how to stay out of foul trouble, yet still contest shots. And NBA players are still like, there was one drive in game 1. I forget who was going to the hoop, but it was just like, it was such a stuff. Like he just threw it back in the guy's face. So they'll adjust to him. He'll have his rookie moments, but this is exactly the Donovan season that we all want. I think is him just figuring out the defense, let the offense come, but just be that big guy on defense. So I was excited. I've been pleased with his first 3 games.
I think too, it was a great contrast to see, and it's a lot to your point there, is you saw it when, no offense to your Baylor guys, but when Misi came on the floor, it was a point to attack him on offense. Yeah. When Donovan Klingon's on the floor, he's getting treated like a veteran rim protector. and there is an aversion to going down there because he will absolutely annihilate your shot.
Yeah, he will. And he times it so well. And for being that big and he's good at blocking or timing your shot, it's like it makes such a difference. It is that Rudy Gobert just policing the paint. and you have to just alter your shots. You have to throw it up so weird off the glass just to even have that thing have a chance. So, I'm excited to see how he grows and develops. And I think behind a guy like Ayton, I don't know how much like learning is going on there, maybe, but at least Klingon doesn't feel like he has to come in and like do all these things, And then when Rob comes back, there's still more. There's a lot of centers in the mix, so I think bring him along slowly. Goodness gracious, knock on wood, no injuries or whatever. But just I love that he can stay out of foul trouble. I think that is an awesome thing. So I'm excited, man. Okay, last thought before we go, and I'll give you 1 minute.
Okay.
Well, actually, one more thing after this. First Blazer traded, and I know I hate to go back to negative thoughts, but who is it, Steve? Who's going to be the first one out the gates here? Provided that the season goes poorly, who's the first one out?
I think if they get any run of consistent play from Robert Williams, I think they pull the ripcord on that pretty quick.
Yeah.
Because it just makes sense from a roster construction standpoint. I think you're going to want Klingon playing pretty consistently. That gets a little weirder if Robert's there. And then also, too, it's like you're kind of playing with fire the whole time. So, like, if you get anything over 10 games out of him where he's healthy, I think you got to make that move. I think the dark horse here is Anthony Simons, though. Like, I think they would probably listen to offers. I don't know. I have no insider information, but I think it might be the time. Like, I think they've gotten burned by hanging on to guys a little too long in the past. I think they have a chance to correct this. And really, if you're looking at a guy like Joe Cronin of what plagued his predecessor outside of being a huge asshole was hanging on to guards a little too long. So I think that could be maybe he learns from that.
Yeah. So. Is Neil still in the league?
He's consulting for somebody. I read about it the other day, but I'm pretty sure that could have changed. But I'm sure I remember reading something where he's consulting for somebody.
Goodness gracious. Yeah, I could just, and again, I don't have any insider knowledge. I just am reading the body language, and something about Anthony just feels like he knows he's not going to be here for the long haul. Like, I don't know. There was just some shots in game 1 and in game 2 where I'm just like, dude, Anthony hits those, man. They're wide open, and it's like, it's just something about it. It just doesn't smell right to me. So I don't know. And then when Shaden comes back, you have that weird log jam again. And at least we don't have Brogdon here in the mix too. But there's just going to be another with Tumani kind of sliding to some 2 minutes, like shooting guard spots. I don't know. I think I'm with you, Steve. I think as the dark horse, you're right. But if Simons was one of the first ones out, I wouldn't be surprised either. So, but I'm with you, Rob.
And not to hedge too much, but I think if Jeremy Grant keeps playing like he is, who knows? Joe Cronin might get the offer he wants. I'm kind of in like, well, let's just see this out a little bit, maybe. I pump the brakes. We got a lot more years on this contract. Let's see what's going on here.
For sure. No, I like it. Okay, now final question. So, you came to fame. Why you're a celebrity, Steve, in the Portland area was because you are one of the hosts, right? The co-host, the main host. I don't know what you want to call yourself, of the Church of Roy podcast. This is it's a staple. It's on the Mountain Rushmore of Blazer podcasts. And you took a break. It was a lot. You had a lot going on. It's a lot. It's a lot to do these shows. I'm blessed to have an amazing crew behind me, and you guys don't get to see their faces. Without them, I don't do this. So we have been talking, and I was trying to, hey, Steve, what about the Church of Roy? Is it going to come back? And I'll let you answer. I mean, is it kind of maybe going to come back?
I think now is I think last year was too early still. I think I've definitely been kicking it around since we've talked, and I think that the time's right I get to do exactly what I like to do. Yeah. It's just trying to figure out what my bandwidth is as far as what frequency the shows would be. But I think there's a clear vision on what I would like to do. And if you're a longtime listener, remember when I started the show with my co-host Brian Wilcox, it was always we wanted to make a show that we would want to listen to. And I think finally I have stuff that I would want to listen to about the draft, about the future of this team. I think there's a lot of other people that handle coverage during this time in the Blazers way better than I ever could. I knew pretty early that I didn't have the mindset to make it work and make a product that I believed in. Some people are way more gifted at that. I think now I could serve. I feel like I can make a show that people would take something from and that I would be proud of. So I'm hoping that instead of the Church of Roy, a name that we've talked about is, building the Church of Roy, and really just, and it could be about the players on the roster, the guys coming in, because this is a class with a lot of depth to it. There's going to be a lot of very insane coverage on this class throughout the college season, but especially in the ramp up through the lottery and to the draft night. So I'd love to be a part of the community and making my voice heard a little more often. So still working out details, but it's definitely something that for the first time since we stopped doing the show, I've considered maybe doing it again.
Cool. All right. Well, I won't pressure you too much, but I would be one of those listeners that would tune in and hear you out. So I think that would be great. And Steve, just a little insider knowledge, and everyone can, hear this. The episodes you've been on with me, I mean, they do well, Steve. I mean, we get some bump listenership. So I know your name pulls some weight. So don't worry.
No, those might be hate listens though. So you don't know if they're if people want to hear me or they just want to disagree with me. So don't underestimate the haters out there. So
you know what? Take it either way. Well, cool. Well, Steve Dewald, as always, thank you for coming on the Rip City Roundtable podcast. We can't wait to hear all the things coming up with you on the website or the podcast and just being back on the show. So we appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate it, Corey. I definitely your professionalism and your enthusiasm for this is one of the main reasons I'm even considering it.
So, cool. All right.
I appreciate you having me on.
Dude, anytime. We appreciate it, man. Sweet. See ya.
We are Rogue Media Sports.